Hello, my name is Chris. About a year and a half ago, on a hot July day, my son Andrew died of an accidental heroin overdose. He was alone in a city park in a town not far from where I live now. Andrew's passing had a devastating effect on his family, on me, on my wife, his mother, and particularly his two sisters and his very young daughter. I want to talk to you today about the way our country approaches the problem of drug addiction and criminal justice reform. The war on drugs that was begun in the early 1980s has been an abject failure. We have hemorrhaged billions, trillions of dollars to try and solve a problem that can't be solved by arresting people and putting them in prison. Andrew's problems with drugs started when he was a teenager. As many kids do, he experimented with drugs and alcohol at a fairly young age. That led to some petty crime, some encounters with the police, and then at the age of 16, he was arrested for drug possession and convicted of several other felonies and put in prison for several years. Unfortunately, at the time, our state did not have the resources or the willingness to provide the effective treatment and life skills training that he would need to be a successful individual when he got out of prison. When he did finally get out of prison, as a convicted felon, he found it nearly impossible to find gainful employment. This caused problems with his self-esteem, which fed the addiction problem, and it got progressively worse until his life ended all too soon on July 1st, 2014. My appeal to you today is that you consider the possibility that our country's drug policies should change from a model of arrest, conviction, and imprisonment to one of harm reduction. What that means is that as a community, we should do everything we can to help people with drug addiction to avoid the criminal justice system. These crimes are for the most part victimless. It's at the point when addicts have to pay for their drugs and they have no money that they turn to crime. In the harm reduction model, addicts aren't prosecuted for using the drugs. Instead, the community does everything it can to keep them from going to jail. This model has been used successfully in Seattle and several other U.S. cities for a while now, and in Europe for several years. It saves money and it saves lives. I would like to ask you today to contact your state and federal legislators, members of Congress, and ask them to consider these changes as they deliberate about criminal justice reform. Harm reduction is more effective and costs less money. The war on drugs has been a failure. I consider my son to be a casualty of that war, and I want it ended. If you believe as I do, please share this video with your friends and neighbors. And again, write to your congresspeople and your state legislators and tell them that your vote in the next election may well depend on whether or not they come up with wise answers to a very complex problem. We know that what's been happening for the past 35 years hasn't worked. Thank you. Take care.